Rachel, you're rolling. Okay, good evening, council, staff, and the members of the audience. Welcome. Would you please join me in standing for the invocation to be given by Pastor Joe Price.
Guys, for all you guys do for your leadership. I was thinking on the way over here, one of my favorite verses is Proverbs 29:18, where it says, where there is no vision, the people perish. And the truth is you guys have set a vision for this community. And we are just so grateful for that, mainly that you brought Chick-fil-A to Sunnyvale. That's really what I just wanted to say thank you for that. And Whataburger was a nice addition as well. So, but in all seriousness, thank you for taking that leadership. We realize that oftentimes when things are going well, people are silent. And when things are not going well, people will let you know what they think. And so we just want to say we appreciate you. We love you. And so I just want to pray a blessing over the committee tonight. So let's do that. But Father, we are so grateful for your provision, for your goodness, for the people that you have put in leadership. Scripture tells us that nobody is appointed without your approval. And so we trust that. And we know that the right people are in the right spots doing the right things for this community. And Lord, I pray that you would continue to give them wisdom, continue to give them boldness and courage to make the tough decisions that oftentimes people are not willing to make. Lord, and I pray that we as a community would lift them up, would remind them, would support them, Lord, and that we would just trust the wisdom and the authority that you've given them. Lord, I pray for a great meeting tonight, Lord, that you would bring sound wisdom to this and the days moving forward, and that you would continue to bless the city and the town of Sunnyvale. And we will just give you just the praise for all that you've done. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Paris. Please join me standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Everyone, please be seated. Welcome one more time to the Town of Sunnyvale Council meeting, regular town meeting for Monday, April 11, 2022. Time is 7:02. We have all 7 council members are present, so we have quorum. So the first item is introduction of new public works superintendent, Christopher Allen. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I want to introduce our new Public Works Superintendent. His name is Christopher Allen. He comes to us from the town of Flower Mound, and then before that, he worked for North Texas and Garland. We think he's going to be a great addition. He brings a lot of experience and a lot of certifications that we desperately needed. So that's it. We appreciate him coming tonight.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah. No, that is a serious. I love it. You got 82. Thank you, Chris.
Thank y'all so much. Appreciate it. Just welcome.
Okay, next item is announcement. This is the time members of the audience may come forward and speak. I'm sorry. This is the time pursuant to Texas Code Section 551.0415. The mayor and council and staff may report on various items as listed on the agenda. Council, are there any announcements? Staff has announcements? Because next one is public comments. This is the time members of the audience may come forward and speak to the council on any items other than items on the agenda or personal matters or legal matters. If anyone would like to come forward, and you may do so at this time. If you are joining us via Zoom, you may raise your hand. Good evening, sir. Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Soji John. I'm a resident of Sunnyvale. Thank you, council members, mayor. Three things I want to talk to you about: Dallas College Board of Trustees, myself, and also the election coming up. So if you're not familiar with Dallas College, it's not unusual because it's what used to be Dallas County Community College. In 2020, they joined under one umbrella, Dallas College. I'm running for the Board of Trustees for District 3, which since the 2020 census, we've been redistricted. And we're along in District 3 contains Sunnyvale, Garland, Rowlett, and Saxe. So this is for a position on the Board of Trustees. There are seven trustees. A little bit about myself. I'm a resident of Sunnyvale, been a resident for 15 years. I'm an electrical engineer and a lawyer by trade. I work for Western Digital and represent Western Digital on several boards. And I'm also a manager for one of their major organizations, SD3C, and I run the Dallas office for Western Digital. I've been a user of Dallas County Community College for my growing formative years. My children attend Sunnyvale School here, and as you know, it's a dual credit program. So I think it's important that we continue the benefits that it brings to our community. So I'd like to be your voice on the Dallas College Board of Trustees. Election is an off year. There's not many things going on in Sunnyvale. Election day is May 7th. Early election is April 25th to May 3rd. It's an off year. It's an off time as well. So I really encourage the residents and everybody to come out and vote. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Soji. He's also a member of the Board of Adjustments. Okay, anyone else from the members of the audience would like to come forward and speak to the council? No one else is coming forward from the chamber. Joseph, anyone raising their hand? No hands raised. We're going to close the public comments. Moving on to the consent agenda items. Council, we have 4 items on the consent agenda item, number 4, 5, 6, and 7. Would anyone like to remove any of the items from the consent agenda? No hands raised. So I call for a motion on consent agenda items 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Motion to approve consent agenda items 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Motion made by Mr. John. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Clark. All in favor signify. All opposed. Motion passed 7-0. Agenda items are passed. Thank you, Mayor Cash, and rest of the attendees. Moving on to item number 8, public hearing items. 8, hold a public hearing and consider actions on the first reading of ordinance 2022-19, granting a special use permit to convert roughly 30,612 square feet of an existing building to a self-storage mini warehouse facility located generally at 613 US Highway 80. W. Charles.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. East Fork Antique Mall is located at 613 US Highway 80 on the north side of the highway at the intersection with Watha. The property is just over 5 acres and is zoned highway commercial. And it was developed primarily in the 1970s, but then there was an expansion in 2000. The owner is now requesting SUP approval to convert a portion of one of the buildings from the antique mall, which is what's approved as now, to a self-storage and mini warehouse. And their plan would convert roughly about 30,000 square feet of the eastern building to create 190 storage units and a small management office. These units would all be within the existing building, and would be accessed through interior corridors within that building. So there would be any exterior facing units. That's a requirement of our UDO, and they would comply with that. There'd be no other changes proposed to the buildings themselves. Since the applicant is requesting an SUP, the proposed site plan was reviewed by staff for compliance with current UDO requirements, with the goal of bringing the site into compliance with current requirements where we could. Because that being said, given the age and the layout of the existing development, absent just bulldozing the building and starting over, there's going to be certain requirements that the property just cannot comply with because it wasn't built that way. And so in situations like this, staff works with the applicant to make improvements where they're possible, and then just understand that there may be some areas where it's not possible. And this is primarily applicable to this particular case in two issues, that being parking and landscaping. On the parking issue, the issue is further complicated by the fact that in 1999, prior to the expansion, when that site plan was being considered by the town, the property was granted a variance from the typical parking requirements. Usually, a retail use of this size would require about 566 parking spaces. The town approved this site plan with a variance with just 111 spaces. And so, and then furthermore, as part of this process, as we were reviewing the site plan for this, we realized that even though 111 were required, only 87 were currently marked out on the property, and some of those were being used for display of outside merchandise and U-Haul trucks and things like that. Since this is being proposed for a self-storage use, which is a relatively low intensity use from a parking demand standpoint, much lower than retail, the applicant is not proposing to add any parking to the site specifically for that use. They are, however, through conversations with staff, going to add a fire lane along the backside of the property to improve fire coverage. And that provides an opportunity to add 29 new parking spaces. And those 29 parking spaces are intended to get the property up to 111, which is what it should have based on the prior approval. And then 5 extra spaces that would allow them to park the U-Haul trucks that they have for rent on the site today. Going forward, the 111 code required parking spaces cannot be used for anything else other than parking. And so outside display of merchandise or outside display of these trucks that are for rent would not be allowed in the 111 spaces. So since there's only 5 extra spaces, by definition, that limits that to no more than 5 trucks on the property in the future. Then for landscaping, the site is very constricted just because of the size of the buildings and the parking that is available. They didn't account for much landscaping back in the 70s when this initially developed. And in order to add landscaping, you quickly run into an issue of the only place to add landscaping is to take away from parking. And as we discussed, they're already very constricted on the amount of parking that they have. And so there's some things that they just can't comply with, whether that be some of the buffer width requirements along the streets or some of the interior parking lot landscaping requirements. But they have done what they can. They're going to add a hedgerow along the parking and drive aisles along all sides of the property. They're planting 42 trees, which is about 60 to 70% of what's required. They're planting wherever they have room to plant them. But again, some places they just don't have the room to do so. So staff believes that the proposed landscape plan comes as close to conformance as they reasonably can. This plan was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission at their March meeting, and they recommend it forward for approval, subject to no conditions. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, Charles, I'm with the applicant here. Would you like to come forward and speak to the council, sir? Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Tom Jones, 5815 Meadowcrest, Dallas, Texas. Mayor, council members, I appreciate you hearing our case tonight. As staff indicated, we did go back and forth 4 or 5 times with them, and I think we've come to a solution that, one, I appreciate staff's consideration for the physical limitations we had on the site, and 2, their patience in guiding us to what I think is the best possible solution. As staff mentioned to you, the change in use will reduce the parking demand by 150 spaces. So we're moving back toward that 111 that was previously approved in the site plan. And We're appreciative of staff and P and Z's unanimous support. So I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Jones, if you don't mind, take a seat. Let me take public comment, then I may ask you to come forward. Okay. Okay, at this time, let me take public comments. If there's anyone from the members of the audience who would like to come forward and speak to the council, you may do so. If you are joining us via Zoom, you may raise your hand. No one is coming forward from the chamber. Joseph, anyone raising their hand?
No hands raised.
No hands raised. We're going to close the public comments. So would you not, do you mind coming back forward? Council, you have any question for the applicant? Or staff? So, okay, now you have something? Let me start off by, okay. In general, so if you look at the town strategic planning, you're trying to keep the town as a small town feel, good quality development. So in general, when I saw this initially, my immediate feeling was this is not something going to make Sunnyvale a better town, self-storage facility. So I was quite hesitant with this addition of this approval of this SUV. Then I started talking to Bob about this further, town manager. He pointed out to me, and that's what Mr. Jones, I want to get your thoughts. Is this a completely enclosed building? Or can we see the shutter for the storages or storage from outside?
It's entirely enclosed within the existing building shell.
So you're taking an existing building, you are building this 190 storages within that, with that building. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct.
And that there was a, let me just read the note staff sent out about somebody wants to go forward. Let me look it up. I'll come back to you, sir. Go ahead, Larry.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Jones, appreciate you coming up. Generally, I don't have a big problem with the project. I do have a little bit of problem with how we got to no conformance with standards, and now we're kind of moving standards to get back to where we were supposed to be at. It kind of leaves us, I think, as a council in a little bit of an awkward position. We're gonna approve, especially for a special use permit, something that we wouldn't approve for somebody else. And really, this comes down to landscape and maybe some other issues. So I got a few questions for you. Staff, you can help me out when we go down. We need to security. I'm sorry, I couldn't see what the security methods is. Most storage facilities, they have some sort of camera security system or somebody living on site. What's your plan for security?
I'd have to defer to the owner on the questions of the interior of the building. I'm the civil engineer responsible
Fair
for the
enough.
parking, landscaping, and
Okay.
the fire lane. So
Good evening, Mr. Boyd. Come on, you can join. Gentlemen.
Lawrence Boyd, 611 Watha. What was the question again?
The question is, what are you going to be doing for security? Will it be on-site security, somebody living at the facility, camera security?
Well, there'll be cameras, of course, but there won't, I live at the facilities. I live behind, my residence is behind my building, so that would be about the only on-site security. No one's gonna be living in the building.
So keypad entry in and out?
Yes.
What are the hours of operation going to be?
7 to 8, 7 in the morning to 8 in the evening is what we haven't opened, so that's what we're talking about.
How do you control that? If it's a self-storage,
It's a keyless entry system that works off your smartphone. So when we'll have people there during the day, during sometime, I'm thinking 8 to probably 5, but you can come, a couple hours before and a couple hours after it closes. But when you come, your phone is your key to enter the building. So the software will allow you in, but no one else, of course.
so we'll limit the software control. They cannot come before 7 or after 8.
Right, correct.
So, and again, I've used storage facilities and needed it when our house got hit by a tornado, the things we needed. And so I'm not opposed to that, but you said maybe 7 to 8. I'm personally not a big fan of that being a maybe, whether it's 10 or 8 or 9.
But it won't be 10 because it won't be later than 8. And it won't be earlier than 7. How's that for an answer? We're not sure, we haven't got that far with the hours of operation, but the hours of operation, they're gonna have on-site 7 days a week, but the hours will be less than the hours you can actually get in.
I think that maybe probably the bigger concern I have is how late will somebody be able to come through there? So if it's 8 o'clock, and to me, if it's 10 o'clock, it's fine. If it's 9 o'clock, it's fine. I'm just asking the question.
We haven't, we're discussing it. We haven't, but we're not talking about all night or anything like that, or even 10 o'clock. So,
If it was after 10 o'clock, I'd be opposed. I'll just say that.
and let's say 6 to 10 or less. How's
Okay.
that for a window? Would that be okay?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Mainly is if the software doesn't work and someone's locked in my building, I have to go let them out. And so
I
I would
understand
assure
that.
you.
You don't want to go out there at 2 o'clock in the morning?
No.
Okay. Just a couple other questions. Charles hit on this on the U-Haul trucks. What's going to happen with the U-Haul trucks in the front? Did you say they're going to reduce the number?
We got five or six, 5 spaces that are dedicated. They're by the sign. They're right there at the bridge. They're extra long because the way the parking lots dimensions are. So the trucks will fit in there nicely.
So Larry, would that be outside the building?
No, they're outside the building, but they're in the parking lot.
Yeah, in the front parking.
That's what I thought.
In the
Okay.
parking lot, yeah.
So you're going
Okay.
to continue to keep there. You're going to keep it exact.
Right,
In the
correct.
same place. generally.
So I have 2 more questions for you. The next one has to do with trees. I do kind of like the tree rules we have in our town. But I was gonna ask you the question, why are you putting Vitex on the boundary? And the reason
that
I asked
again?
that, the Vitex trees, they're on the east side, I think is what this plan looks like. And here's my concern. Do you own the land to the east side of that?
Yes.
That may be not a concern then. But Vitex is not a total buffer because they go dormant until about May of every year. So if it was a buffer, then, but that's my next question, is Vitex the right tree to put there for a buffer? Not that I'm trying to get that deep in the weeds of your
To
trees.
be honest with you, I don't know anything about trees, so I hired a landscape architect and he talked to the town and what they put down is what they picked. And I don't know exactly the process of that. Do you know?
Yeah, so those trees are, they're not for screening purposes.
Okay.
They were just put there because they're required, they should be in other places on the property, but because they're limited where they should be, they're trying to at least add trees to the property, even if they're not in the right place. And so Vitexes are an approved ornamental tree species that we allow. And so they're not for screening, and that's an approved tree.
That's really why I was asking the question. So my last one is this. Given our traffic scenario right there, that corner, are these 2 entrances on the property, are they there now, or is it just 1 entrance?
On
Number
the
2.
service road, there's a third one on Watha that stays locked.
So given the constraints of what's going on with that, it's going to be one way in the future.
It's
Is this
one
gonna be an
way,
issue?
it's one way except when there is no police around.
Yeah. Is that going to be an issue for you in the future with?
No.
I mean, that's when the construction gets done, it's going to be one way.
You're talking about Highway 80 expansion,
Yes,
right?
yes.
You're
Well-
talking about future.
They were giving tickets to people going through that parking lot before. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm just kind of curious.
Well, they weren't going through my parking lot because the gate stays closed.
So they were cutting through and driving across that land and catching up there. Yeah, you're right. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they weren't, I know that the gate has never been open.
Okay.
But we do a lot of weird things. We do a lot of historical restoration and just like Hall of State, stuff like that, one of my businesses. So we were working the other night because we had to work between 6 and 3 o'clock in the morning. So the corporate people would be out of their offices. And I came home at 3 o'clock in the morning and there was a policeman sitting on the service road heading west, but he's sitting at the stop sign. And I didn't know what he was doing. So I flashed my lights. He didn't move. So I went ahead and pulled and immediately pulled. And all of a sudden the lights come on behind me. Well, there was a knucklehead on Watha turning left while the policeman was sitting right there. And of course, he was going to get him.
All right. That's all I had. Thank you very much.
But yeah, on the north side, I own all that property. It's north of my building. There's 2 residential houses. The ones, and then I live directly behind it. So there's, there's nobody gonna complain about anything going on at East Fork too.
So looking at the property on the east on this map, and this map could be 5 years old. It's not, no, it could be 2 years old. It looks like, is that U-Haul trailers that are parked on the side? Not in the
Can you pull out the
property?
drawing? Can you pull out the picture, Charles?
On the side of where, on the east
It's on the
side?
east side of your building. There's about 8 or 9 trucks that are
Well,
parked
in
there.
1998, when we were doing the expansion of the East Fork Mall, we talked to the city then, and we parked, they own the land, so we
Right.
had, it's a blacktop and gravel. And so we park overflows. Sometimes we get more in than they'll fit on the parking lot, so we move them over there. And that's where we currently been putting them.
So Larry, that east of that building is yours also?
Yes, I own 8.5 acres east of me, yes.
East, okay.
So are the 5 U-Haul trucks you mentioned, are they gonna be?
Yeah.
Are they gonna be?
Go ahead.
Hey, are they gonna be here, or are they gonna be in the parking lot space?
All right, see where the bridge comes directly across.
Right.
There's a 55-foot pencil there holding up my billboard. And then right underneath it is 5 parking spots, so that's where they'll be parked.
Okay, so that's not where they'll be parked on the side.
That's
they'll-
what this one, Larry?
Correct, yes. Between the 2 gates, that's where they're gonna be.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. Finch, you have a question, sir?
Um, Charles, what does the UDO currently say right now about hours of operation for commercial?
There are no specific regulations that would apply to all businesses. There's some like alcoholic beverages that are limited, but a business like this, the UDO would not have a requirement. So I was going to suggest if hours of operations are important, then as a condition of the SUP, you can add to the ordinance a restriction on the hours of operation. So if you wanted to say recommend approval or to approve subject to hours of operation being X to Y, then we would put that in the ordinance.
Just curious. I didn't know it was there, and I'm just wondering if I want to get my service to my storage building, if it's open, then at midnight, then I may have to go at midnight. So I'm just wondering why, if this is an internal storage facility, it's internal, I'm just wondering why we would want to regulate hours of operation when we don't regulate for anything else.
The ones I've used recently are closed at 10 o'clock roughly, just for security, because you go in there and you don't know what's going on while somebody's there. So that was my reference to the question, not trying to limit operation
Yeah.
other than security.
Well, I've already thought about the 2 o'clock morning. I'm not going. I'll be there in the next morning.
But I guess my point is, was the intent of anybody to try and make that part of the ordinance, or was it just a general conversation? Yeah, I guess I am.
If there's no opposition to it, I think from a security perspective, if that's agreeable in some hour, so that 2 o'clock in the morning, people aren't rummaging through there and we got PD out trying to solve something. Look, I know I'm looking outside the framework. I'm not trying to hinder your operation. I'm just looking for security for our town.
Is that good enough? Is that okay with you, 6 to 10 or not?
You go midnight.
If you want to make it 6 to 12, I'm okay. Just
I
what
would,
are you comfortable or just leave it alone?
I would personally oppose imposing any kind of hours of operation, since we don't normally do this and it's not something within our UDO already. I think we just, he's already said, I would just hate to
Let the manager,
ground of adding hours of operation to any business, not just this business. I understand your concern, but he's already said he don't want to mess with it too. I'm just real cautious about us and acting into an ordinance, some kind of restrictive language that we don't want to do. It's just my thought.
hey, Charles, do you have any comments on that, sir? Charles, can you advance to that colored? Larry, I have one more question for you, sir. Can you, yeah, pull up the one. So where is the main entrance here, Larry, for this one? Oh, Mr. Boyd, I should say.
You can call me whatever.
Outside the business, I'll call it.
All right, it's right
That the
there,
one?
right there.
Okay. So is that, because I heard that there was going to be it's going to be what is the entrance gate?
It's a curtain door. It's
curtain.
just a regular door, but it's automatic. So people.
It's
whenever-
automatic.
So when people go in and out with stuff in their hands. Now, if it's before, say, 8 o'clock or after 5 o'clock, they'll have to use their smartphone to get in and it'll open for them. And then inside, there's another, I think there, I have to check again, but there's another gate that keeps them out of the office. I don't know if there's another one to get to the actual units. But once you get to your unit, then you have to use your smartphone again to get your unit open.
So that is each of the unit, like each of the blue or the pink or the yellow,
Every
right?
unit has their own, when you lease the space, it'll be set up where your phone is your key to get in. If you don't have a phone, then there's a little card deal you get, they lease or rent or whatever.
And the gate you just showed, right? That's the one to
It's
the,
actually a door, it's not a gate.
it's a door. Okay,
It's just, it's like a Walmart door, that open curtain door.
gotcha, gotcha. So there is no roll-up door to the front of the building?
No, sir.
For unloading large items into the units?
There is an overhead door in the back west corner, northwest corner, and you. between
Can
those
you
two
point that
buildings,
when you say northwest corner, where are we talking about?
We're on, right there. If you can see that, where it's circling. So if there's anybody that needs to unload, they'll be unloading there, unless it's just, boxes they're carrying.
But
in there.
that is not visible from outside, right?
No, sir. Unless you're sitting on my porch. And you
So
better
how do they access that?
with the smartphone.
I know, how do they, what's the end, how do they,
Well, they would have to come down the fire lane and we're working out the logistics, but the fire lane, I don't know, we haven't gotten that far yet, but probably have we'll have a gate there, but whether we have a automatic gate or not, or just a key where someone goes, because the odds of someone needing to unload a truck is probably once a week, once a month, not very, what goes into, go into self-storage, stuff you should throw away.
So would that be,
and you're going to market this one? Just ask.
would that be panic
Wonder
bar?
how I've been in business so long.
Would that be panic bar escape with an alarm?
I'm sorry.
Would that be a panic bar
Yes,
escape
there'll
with an
be a.
alarmed?
It's alarm, yeah.
So you don't get somebody driving into that back area and blocking the door so they can make a shorter walk to get into their
They
cubicle?
can't get into the building without their phone.
Well, I'm talking about going the other direction. If
How about the overhead
they
door area?
if they were to come in the front and then go out
They
that
can't go
back,
out the back.
they better be able to, because you have a fire, you gotta have a way to get out.
Well, there's the push.
It's a panic bar escape. But, okay, so now the next step is they block that door to hold it open because they've parked their car over there because they don't want to have to walk that full length to get
Yeah.
in.
Well, again, of the logistics, I'm still working on that, but after ours, or when there isn't someone present,
Yeah.
they won't be able to go out that area. Now, there's
That's
another,
good.
there's
Okay.
another door that is on the north wall on the east side that has a panic.
That's a panic bar.
Yeah, and the alarm.
Alarmed and all that, good.
all that kind of stuff. And all this is tied to security systems, and unfortunately, I'll get an email. Well, probably not, but as you, from the building on the left, I live directly behind it, about 800 feet.
Behind the storage? Council, are there any additional questions for Mr. Jones or Mr. Boyd? All right.
Thank you.
Sir. Appreciate you. Charles, any other comments or questions?
No, sir.
Rob, anything else, sir?
Mentioned in Mr. Boyd's defense, if there was to the security issue, when they use their smartphone, won't you have a way to know who accessed your building? Yeah, so if something happened after hours off record, I think we could always go back and find out who went in the building. I just didn't want you to feel like there was no way that there'd ever be if something did happen in the building.
Good point. Thank you. Bob, thanks for the explanation earlier this morning. Appreciate you. Thanks. Okay, council, is there Mr. Eagle? Okay, let me call for motion. Somebody has to go. All right. If there are no other
Are you ready?
discussions, call for a motion. Let's go.
Make a motion to approve item number 8 as presented. Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Egan, second by Mr. Ellis to approve item number 8 as presented. Everyone heard the motion. Are there additional discussions? If not, all in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Boyd. Thanks for everything you've done for a board here in Sunnyvale. Appreciate you. Thank you, Charles. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, item number 9. Discuss, consider, and act upon amendment number 1 to the Collins Road Phase 2 Professional Services Agreement between the Town of Sunnyvale and Kimley Horn and Associates Incorporated. How are you, Mr. Engineer?
Doing fine, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Council.
Sir.
Yeah, just some background on this. As y'all will recall, back in the last November, you had approved us to enter into a professional services agreement with Kimley Horn for the redesign of Collins Road from Tripp Road up to Townies Boulevard as a 4-lane divided thoroughfare as per the thoroughfare plan. You had also asked or directed staff to get with Kimley Horn about evaluating alternatives and looking at updating the traffic counts, which were last updated in 2017 for this stretch of roadway. And this agreement will address that. Basically, what they're going to look at is, number one, they're going to be gathering current traffic counts as they exist today for all major intersections along Collins Road, not only between Tripp and Townies, but actually we're going to be looking at traffic counts all the way from US 80 all the way up to Barnes Bridge Road, just to get that data. And then once the traffic counts have been obtained, they'll look at capacity analysis and opinions of construction cost for several different types of possible alignments. One of which would be, of course, again, to reconstruct it as per the thoroughfare plan as it stands today. They would also look at just upgrading the road as it is, just, redoing the pavement and upgrading it to be something a little bit more sturdy than it is now. Another option would be maintaining the 2-lane asphalt, but add left and right turn lanes at key intersections. And then another option we would be looking at is construction of a 2-lane asphalt roadway, but have a continuous left turn lane throughout the entire alignment. As I said, that would also include quote unquote high level construction costs and their recommendation on a preferred alternative. And then finally, they would look at the possibility of a potential alternate to construct roundabouts, not exactly like the one we have here at the Tripp Road, but smaller roundabouts at Stony Creek Stony Creek Boulevard and then Hounslow Lane / Redstone. And then if those appear to be the most effective means of dealing with traffic, then we would proceed toward more of a cost estimate and a little bit more details in the roundabout. But if it's felt that roundabouts are not necessary, then they would not proceed any further with that particular aspect of the project. Then, of course, once that is done, then we would prepare a presentation to you all on the results, and then we would proceed from there. So all that having been said, I'd be happy to take any questions y'all might have.
Let me take public comments, then I'll come back to you. Okay. Let me open up for public comments. If there's anyone from the members of the audience who'd like to come forward and speak to the council on item number 9, you may do so at this time. If you are joining us via Zoom, you may raise your hand. No one is coming forward from the chamber. Joseph, anyone raising their hand?
No hands raised.
No hands raised. We're going to close the public comment slide. If you don't mind, come back, sir. So let me ask you, just kind of, we have a $79,000 proposal here, right?
Yes, sir.
So I'm reading, council subsequently directed staff to evaluate alternative design for this section of roadway. So the $79,000 cost is because of that direction from council, or part of this cost was going to be there no matter what?
Well, as I say, the cost is for them to do the traffic analysis. The total maximum cost would be $79,000. $25,000 of that is related to the potential analysis of traffic circles if the preliminary report seems to support that. If the report does not support that and we drop the roundabout, then you would be able to remove the $25,000 out of the total cost. So the total cost would end up being $54,000. But of course, we want to report the potential maximum cost here.
So that, I'm sorry, I missed that. So how do we save the $25,000 again? Can you repeat that one more time, sir?
Well, what they will do is they will proceed ahead with the traffic counts, the high level analysis up to $54,000. Then what they'll do is they will present us alternatives with potential roundabouts at those intersections without. Then we will make a decision about whether we want to proceed further with the roundabouts or not. If we elect not to proceed with the roundabouts, then we would not spend that $25,000. But if we do, then they would need that $25,000 to design those appropriately or look at them appropriately.
Gotcha. So when the first time the consultant come, it can cost up to $54,000.
Yes, sir.
They'll come by the higher level analysis of the traffic counties. Obviously, we have to do that no matter what, right? Not because of council direction, but that's something we got to get it done no matter what, correct?
Right, y'all had directed us to get updated traffic counts.
Updated traffic.
Right, the last time that we had a forecast done for Collins was in 2000. We'd originally done one in 2014, which was subsequently upgraded in 2017. Each of these for 10-year periods. So the previous one takes us up through 2027. This would also be a 10-year analysis, so it would take us through 2032.
Is that the right time to do is now, traffic analysis, or should we wait for delay any further? Just a question, not suggesting, just asking a question.
In my opinion, the time to do it is now because, we are needing to look at these different alternatives, and having this information in hand is really going to be critical in order to enable the town and for y'all to make an informed decision. So I would recommend that we move forward.
And if I could just add to that, one of the reasons we're doing this now is because we are currently under design on a 4-lane divided concrete roadway.
Okay.
If the council want to change course and go through one of these other alternatives, we need to know that sooner rather than later, so they're not spending money on design of a street that we ultimately don't want to do. And so right now we're focused on very high level preliminary survey utility locations that regardless of what the roadway looks like in the future, that's not money lost, but pretty soon we're going to move into actual design of what the street's going to look like. So we need to answer the question of what kind of street are we going back with? And so that's why now is the time to do this.
That's
Right, that's correct.
the question.
Yeah,
Mr. Freeman?
when you go to, it seems like as of late, I've been traveling through lots of different towns in East Texas, and you have the 2-lane Texas highway, right? Where you have 2 actual lanes, but you have drivable shoulders that can act like a 4-lane road, but it's really not. Basically, people want to like pull over and let you pass, or it basically turns itself into a turn lane. I mean, is that something else that we've thought of? Because again, it could still have the 4-lane road size, and if down the road we decided to actually implement that 4th lane, we could, or the 3rd and 4th lane. But I mean, it's very rural. It basically keeps with the feel that we're going for, but it also widens it out to where you can actually use it, a little bit differently than just these 2-lane roads that we have.
2-lane road with the 2-lane.
It's basically 2 lanes with drivable shoulders. And so when you go to take a turn, you literally just kind of get off the main road, get to the shoulder, and that's kind of your turn lane. Or let's say you're just going out for groceries and someone's flying, you can literally just pull over to the right, let them just pass you.
Is that asphalt?
Yeah, I mean, it's literally, it's almost a 4-lane road, except they just don't have it. They don't have it striped out. It's literally just a drivable shoulder. I mean, if you haven't seen, it's pretty much how all highways in East Texas operate.
So the question is, that's the construction design, construction wise, cost is going to be.
What I'm saying
identical to
is-
a 4-lane road, right?
Yeah, it's just if we're looking at different options, that's.
I don't think we need to lose sight of the fact that the right of way already exists. It's a matter, and the right of way is wide enough to put 4 lanes in. I'm not saying I'm necessarily right now advocating for 4 lanes, but I think there's some problems. I don't think that's a bad idea, as Member Freeman talked about, but I don't think we need to be worried about right of way acquisition, because it exists. So now it's a matter of what kind of road do we put on? Do we make one that, what can we do to put the right kind of road on that property that exists to continue with the flavor that we want to try to continue with? I think that, and we've talked about this before, I think we've got to be very cautious until we know what the specific answers are about what North Texas Council of Governments would be looking at this, as well as the county would be looking at this, because this plan has been in place for a number of years. I don't know if they're gonna turn and look at us and go, whoa, wait a minute. But I think we need to get those answers, which I brought up before, but I know we hadn't talked about it since. And then one last thing, Lyle, specific toward the traffic survey. I know there's certain outside the boundary that they probably look at with traffic that's not Sunnyvale traffic, but coming up from the south and coming down from the north. Considering the fireside development that's going in there, and considering that there's only 2 real roads to get in, or 2 of the 4 roads that are going to more or less service that development at Bobtown and Barnes Bridge, will they look very, very, very strongly at that population that's going to be up in that area, because that's 1,400 rooftops?
I can say that is part of their scope. They have been made aware of that development, and that is intended to be a part of this analysis.
Like the reason I asked, this may be nitpicking, but I'm just asking the first option there, right? Reconstruction of the existing roadway section 2-lane asphalt, right?
Yes, sir.
So that we are saying is that it's just a 2-lane, there's no concreted or asphalted shoulder, right? So what you're saying?
I mean, there would be, excuse me. They would make it to the point where it would still be a 2-lane asphalt roadway, but it would be a safe 2-lane asphalt roadway. I mean, they may need to do some additional shoulders to provide for emergency, needing to stop, for any time we may need to pull, the Sunnyvale Police Department might need to pull somebody over. So there will be improvements in that regard, but it would still continue to be a 2-lane asphalt roadway in terms of the number of travel lanes.
So what Council, I'm asking for opinion, but I thought I heard Freeman said, and same comment I heard last time, right? We basically build them into a 4-lane road, but we only use the middle 2 lane for traffic. The other are for turn, pull over or something. Is that your intent also? We build as a 4-lane, but only use the middle 2 lane. The others 2 are just short. Is that's what I thought I heard last time.
I think to a question that I think that Charles answered, the only way we get county money is to build 4 lanes. Is that right? Now, how we divide those 4 lanes?
I mean, we haven't had that conversation with the county, but typically the county only funds projects that are capacity improvements.
Okay.
And so if we go back with more or less what is out there today that does not improve capacity, then again, I haven't asked that question specifically, but I would bet that they would have concerns about that.
So if we were to build that with either the other options, left turn, right turn, or increase a lane, at least one, then we would probably get the support for that.
Don't quote me, maybe.
But there is a question, do we need to investigate that first option? Reconstruction of the existing roadway section 2 lane. Is that even something council is interested in?
The first option is really to go back with the road at the capacity that it is today.
Right.
Whether that's the road as it is today with shoulders or not, the capacity would generally be the same.
Right.
And so I think this is just sort of for, there's any number of options that we could have chosen, but I think this gives you 4 options along kind of the spectrum of options that lets us know how that road will perform, or estimate how that road will perform. And then once we are comfortable with, okay, a road in this neighborhood of design will perform satisfactorily by however we define satisfactorily, then we can talk about details of, is it 2-lane with a continuous median or a continuous shoulder or something like that.
So let me ask you, is that a data point of value or interest for town?
I believe so, because I think if we know that the road as it exists today is going to perform at a level of service, I'm just going to make up something D and A through F. And again, just making up numbers, a 4-lane divided is only going to get you to a C, then maybe we decide it's not worth the investment. But knowing where that baseline is and how much improvement you're going to get, I think is valuable.
Fair enough.
I would agree with that. Yes.
Okay, good enough. That's all I want to know. Council, additional discussion for questions. Okay, so Charles, it's going to be 2-step process, right? Come back for 54,000 results, then come back one more time, come back for 25, right?
Well, we'll include the entire sum, but before we authorize them to spend the 25, we will share the results and make a decision about whether we want to spend it or not, but it'll all be in the one agreement.
Council, if you're good with it, thank you, Lyle. I call for a motion, on item number 10, item number 9, my apologies.
Motion to approve item number 9 is presented.
Motion made by Mr. Eldridge, second by Mr. Finch to approve item number 9 as presented. Everyone heard the motion? Are there additional discussions? If none, all in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 7-0. Thank you, Lyle. Thank you, Charles. Moving on to item number 10, mayor and council requests for future staff updates and agenda items. Okay, sounds like there are none. Council item number 11, can I have a motion to adjourn into executive session? Section 551.07 for personnel matters to deliberate appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee town manager.
Like to make a motion to move into executive session for section 551.074 personnel matters.
Motion made by Mr. Eldridge to adjourn to executive session. Do you have a second? Second by Mr. Allen. Everyone heard the motion? All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 7-0. Now time is 7:51. We are on executive session. For the members of the audience, I do not anticipate an action out of this meeting, but you're welcome to stay back and wait and see what happens. Ready? Let me turn off. Let me turn off. Okay, now time is 9:02. We are back in open session. I can confirm as a result of the executive session, no action is to be taken. With that, council, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Made by Mr. Freeman, second by Allen to adjourn. All in favor, signify. All opposed, motion passed 7-0. Time is 9:02 and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.